What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk.
Sorry.
Let me open up a can of. Oh man, it's splattered everywhere. Oh, I'm so sorry. Stone Cold Steve Austin apologizing for his beer going everywhere. Oh my God, I am so sorry.
Here, let me get a towel.
Oh my God, I cannot believe who shook this up. I got it everywhere, and I have no napkins in here.
If you think Stone Cold Steve Austin should sip on this can of sugar-free sparkling water, give me a hell yeah.
Well, shit. I got nothing to clean it up. Oh, man. I'll be back. I know what our cold open is for this week. Stone Cold Steve also says you should always keep wet wipes around.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. Except today, we are doing a Patreon-sponsored episode. This week's episode is brought to us by Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Rock Radio, as well as Radio Unfriendly. And I'll include links to that in the show notes. But we're always thankful for these Patreon-sponsored episodes. And Steve's a good friend of the show. We've had him on. He previously played in the band Get Fired. I want to say they called it Quits. I think they did, yeah. But yeah. Thank you, Steve, for sponsoring this episode. And if you too want to become a sponsor for a future episode, go to patreon.com/punklautopod. Sign up for the $10 tier. It's a one-time $10 donation, and you can choose the album we devote an entire episode to. And if that's a little too rich for your blood, then you could also drop down to the $1 tier, where you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. Where last week we did an I'm Listening, where we talked about the albums we listened to over the last month. Yeah, before we get into it, I like doing show recaps when one of us has gone to a show, and we do a little bit of a kind of recap of it on the show. So it was my turn to go to a show. So I, last week, went and saw Five Iron Frenzy, as well as Spoken in Tongues, in Atlanta, Georgia, which is about 4 hours from my home. It's about 3.5 hours from my work. So I worked all day and then drove to Atlanta. Very fun drive. South Carolina, the worst roads. So it's a meme. It's a meme. If you live in North Carolina, it's a meme to make fun of South Carolina's roads, but it's true. Those roads are horrible.
Yeah, it's laughable how bad the roads are. You just like go the whole way. It's like, how do you let it get this bad?
And it's immediate too. Like the second you cross the state line, it's horrendous. The route I took was just 85. It's just 85 the whole way. Like you get off the exit and there's your stop. But it's it's just funny. You get to the Gaffney Peach and then it's like the roads just are destroyed. But got there right before. No, I got there right as the opener was playing. Loser, Louser. It's a one-man nerd ska band. Guitar player, singer, playing to backing tracks of horns and drums and all that kind of stuff. He has like a screen up showing video the whole time, and he interacts with a voiceover between tracks. It's bad. It's a very bad, very bad set. But it was at Center Stage Atlanta, which is, I can't remember if we'd been there before or not. I think we saw Five Iron play there before, but it was definitely on a different stage, because Center Stage has multiple different levels. I know, like, historically, lots of professional wrestling has happened in Center Stage too. Like, I want to say like some WCW even happened there too. But big kind of like multi-stage venue, which like the Masquerade was like that too, right? It was like multiple stages, multiple levels. Wherever we went to Scion Rock Fest, I think that was the Masquerade. But yeah, this room it was a small intimate room, which was cool. It was a nice little maybe like 2-foot stage, and then even though the room was like a concrete room, it sounded pretty good. They had sound insulation all over the ceiling. Like the entire ceiling was just covered in insulation, so it kept it from being a really uncomfortable room to listen to music in. But Spoken in Tongues played, and that is Billy Power from Blenderhead's new project, and they were really good. They played a lot of newer songs. They had a new EP out called Awkward Future. Played a lot from that. They played some songs off of a couple of the LPs. I really enjoy all of Billy's bands. I was very excited when he got announced as the opener for the show, because I was on the fence. I was like, I'd like to see them again, but 4 hours away, you know, that kind of thing. And then they announced Spoken in Tongues are playing. I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go. So, because I don't know when I would get another chance to see them, unless I like went to Nashville to see them. So I was super pumped to see Billy. Never seen any of his bands live before. They were good. This lineup is the one that he formed on the last LP, I believe. So it's not because the first record was just Billy and like one other guy, and they just did like the first 2 records, and then he put together a band in Nashville after he moved from New York. And they were fun. They were good. They had some good tunes. There was I really like the albums that they put out. I feel like live it could have used a little more crunch to the sound. It didn't feel as full sounding as some of the albums do, but they don't play a lot live, so you know, kind of they're still dialing that in too. But Billy's voice sounds awesome. So he despite taking like a lot of time off as a singer between Blenderhead and Spoken in Tongues, he's gotten a lot better as a singer over the years. And then they played they ended their set with a Blenderhead song, and during their set he said Billy was like, so if some of you are wondering why we're here and why we're playing this and don't know who we are, he said it was like 9 years ago this week they played in Denver, Five Iron Frenzy's second show ever with Blenderhead and MXPX. And so it was a fun little kind of like, you know, memory lane type thing, which is wild that Five Iron's second show was those 2 bands, but it's funny. And then they played a Blenderhead song. They played Transatlantic Solo Flight, which is off of Figureheads of Pop, one of my favorite records ever. Or Figureheads on the Forefront of Pop Culture. That's actually what that's called. But it was wild to see a Blenderhead song live. I never thought I would ever see one of those songs perform live. I know they covered Tow Truck on like a single last year that Spoken in Tongues did, but yeah, just it was cool. Really cool seeing that song live. And then Five Iron came up, and I don't know. Have you looked at the sets of these shows yet, Dylan?
No, I haven't.
So these are the first 3 album only shows that they're doing. They did one in Nashville, did the one in Atlanta, and then they're doing like 2 shows in California, and then they're playing Furnace Fest too, and my guess is that's what they'll play there too. But it is the first 3 albums, and they kicked the show off with Old West, and it's the very first track on the very first album, Upbeats and Beatdowns, and it just immediately just like set the room off. And them playing, I was just like, they're so good. They're so good live. I'd forgotten how good of a live band they were. And it used to be a thing.
They have 2 live albums.
They do. They have 2 live albums. And there's a couple bootlegs, too, out there of live sets. But it used to be a thing, too, where, like, everybody who was in, like, the Tooth and Nail Christian music scene, they would all say Five Iron is, like, one of the best live bands. Like, just one of the best live bands ever. They used to do a lot more stuff with, like, costumes and stuff. They did one where they're all dressed up like Star Trek characters. And they did another tour where they were, like, rockers with, like, mohawks and patchy jackets and all that stuff. Like, they were a costume band for a long time. Five. And then since reunited, they just, you know, wear their normal stuff. But they came out to the X-Men animated series theme song as their walk-on music. I think it's the new one, the new series theme. It sounded just a little different from the original. But the crowd was very much in the audience looks like the band thing theory that you've got going on. Everybody there looked a lot like middle-aged churchgoers, I guess, on the weekend. And they were just so good. They played 22 songs, and it was great, just like from front to back. These are the songs that I kind of, I wanted to see, because when we did see them last time, it was right after they'd reunited, but before the record had come out, the first comeback album, and so it was all from the whole discography, and it was a good batch of songs from the whole discography. But like seeing these songs in particular, I was just so thrilled to see a lot of the stuff. They pulled out some really fun deep cuts. Interestingly, the crowd was really into the silly stuff. The crowd really wanted, was down for, Blue Comb and like Superpowers and Oh Canada.
Yeah, because they were youth group kids who played those dumb songs all the time.
Meanwhile, I'm over here and I'm like, they played Milestone.
Yeah.
They played Beautiful America. Like, those are some of the ones I was like, what? That's wild. They played Third World Think Tank, which is not a great song, but I was still just like, wow, that's a choice. So those are the ones I was pumped for. Like, I pulled out my phone and recorded like Handbook for the Sellout and Where Zero Meets 15, because those are like two of my favorite songs by them. And like, that was when the crowd was at its most dead. So if you see those videos I posted on my Instagram, like, the crowd was 3 times more excited for other songs in their set. It was very funny. I was just like, we're not the same kind of fan. So those people were like pumped for Sucker Punch, you know. It was just a lot of fun though. They do a cover of Close to Me, The Cure, which I never realized they did that, because I think they did it on one of their live records, but it's the intro to Close to Me. It's not the full song. There was at one point, the banter was fun. It was good little banter. Not a ton super like standout memorable stuff, but there was one point in the show where I don't remember the setup for it, but it turned into Reese giving everybody high fives in the front row and saying, "You're dead to me." He'd go, "You're dead to me. You're dead to me." High five. And there's like a little kid. He's like, "How old are you? 4, 5? You're dead to me." And just like kept doing it to everyone. And Dennis, the trombone player, and Reese, lead singer, they did most of the banter. Jeff does a lot. Jeff, the girl, Leonore, she does a lot of banter as well. Micah says some stuff a little bit too. There was one point where somebody said, "There you are, Micah," because there's a song in Five Iron's second album called "Where's Micah?" It's a song about losing him, their guitar player. And and Reese was like, "Yeah, we almost lost him." And Michael's like, "Yeah, I went back to the hotel to take a nap." And he almost didn't wake up in time to get back. And Scott and Sonny said nothing at one point. Right before they played Combat Chuck, Reese was like, "Scott, who's been strangely quiet tonight, this is his favorite song." And if you know anything about the Five Iron Frenzy discography, it's one of their least favorite songs as a band. They hated that song.
Because it's hard.
It's a really hard, fast song, yeah. But also, like, the reason why they've been playing it is the real Combat Chuck passed away last year. So I think it's now just like, oh, they're just going to play it now because, you know, as a tribute to him. So, yeah. There's at one point where Reese is looking at the set list and he says, "Where's Arnold and Willis on this set?" And they were like, "Because we're not playing it." And he's like, "Oh." And then they played it. And according to setlist.fm, it's not on the set list. So, because when they came out, the trumpet player, Brad, he came out and just gave a set list to the audience. I don't know if maybe they printed off too many, but just gave it to the audience. And then some people were like passing it around so they could see the set list in advance. I didn't want to see the set list. I didn't want to know what it was before. I know it's the first 3 albums, so I want to see what they're going to play. So I don't need to see, you know. But apparently it really was not on the set list, and they just pulled it out and played it. And Leonore sang 2 songs. She sang When I Go Out and Receive Him. So those were fun. And then they ended with, they did play 2 songs off of the 2 most recent albums. They did So Far and In Through the Outdoor. Both really fun songs. Made me want to kind of revisit those records because I haven't in a minute. And then close on Every New Day. It's funny. The whole set is like funny, silly songs. And then they close out with like Every New Day, which was their show closer, which at the end of the song, like Reese is crying at the end. It's like, you've been playing this song since like 1997 and like it still gets him to this day. So it was a great set. They were so good live, so much fun. I was really happy that I went to this, and because I was like, man, it's gonna be rough coming home. And I was good until about 30 minutes out, and that's when like the tiredness really started to hit me. I was just like, oh, just make it home. I had to stop for gas, so that kind of woke me back up. But long drive to do by yourself. But I had a good time. Really good show. I'm really glad I went. So, well, let us get into the rest of the show. So as we said, today's episode is a Patreon sponsored episode. And I've done a lot of the talking up to this point. And before we get into the record, let's talk about the albums of 1994. So, Dylan, I want you to take over from here. 1994. What are we talking? What is going on in 1994 that's worth mentioning as far as not our album we're talking about?
Dookie. by Green Day, Smash by Offspring. There's 94 is a big one. I've talked about this before on the show, and it's like 24-Hour Revenge Therapy by Jawbreaker comes out same month as Dookie. There's Jawbox came For Your Own Special Sweetheart came out the same month, came out in February as well. There's like one more like big, like really influential, important record. There's what, the first, is that the first? No, that's the second Rancid record in June. Robin the Hood by Sublime comes out in February also. That's another big one. Yeah. I want to say there's one more record, but maybe that's it. Yeah, I think those were the ones. But I mean, Weezer's Blue album comes out in 94 as well. I mean, I don't know that I would call it a punk record, but it's on here.
Yeah. This is just rateyourmusic.com. But
right. Diary by Sunny Day Real Estate. That's right there. That was a 94 record as well.
Yeah, 1994 is a big year, very important year, especially for the shape of punk to come. That didn't come out in 94. That came out later. But maybe it's a reason why that record even exists. You never know.
There is a refused record in 94. It's like the first thing they did.
Yeah. 1994, a pretty big year. We have actually covered it a couple times. If you go back to episode 275, we did Magnified by Failure. And then episode 215, we did Parts and Accessories by Spark Marker. That was a Patreon-sponsored episode by Jason of Songs About Chocolate and Girls. We also did Prairie Home Invasion by Jello Biafra and Mojo Nixon. That was also a Patreon-sponsored episode by One Band 5 Songs host Dave Brown. And we did Set It Off by Madball and Hedgehog by Milk Banana. We did that with Steve Doesn't on the show. And we did Bow by Focused along with Believe In by Shotmaker. That was our EP, and that's episode 35. So a while back there. So 94 is a Patreon-sponsored heavy year, apparently. Funnily, that we've covered a few times.
This one's funny. Danzig 4 came out in 94, which is a good record, despite its lack of reputation.
Yeah.
It's funny, we're recording this today. We're recording this on the 3rd, July 3rd. I wanted to mention, which is a double punk holiday. It is the date in which Return of the Living Dead takes place.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the establishing shot, like, July 3rd at whatever PM.
Mm-hmm.
It is also the date. I just saw this on Twitter. It's really funny. It is the date in 2004. So we are on the 20th anniversary of the infamous Tuba City Community Center and Navajo Nation incident, where Danzig performed and was punched backstage.
Oh, the Northside Kings are undefeated? Punch?
That is today's date, 20 years ago.
Wow. Well, what does he yell at him? He calls him a motherfucker, that's for sure. He shoves the guy. Yeah. Danzig shoves the lead singer. The dude is towering over him too. He's got a good 100 pounds on Danzig, because it was Northside Kings were late for the show, really late for the show, and Danzig was fuck it and just went on. And then they were you can play after, but knowing that no one would be there. So the Northside Kings were all mad, but also maybe don't be late for the show.
Yeah, was he supposed to wait for you?
Yeah, right. The opener? No.
You're supposed to be there to load in. Yeah, he shoves him. Dude's big. He's not buff looking, but he's a big guy. He's tall and he's big, and Danzig shoves him, and Danzig, I think, probably has not been in nearly as many fights as you think he would have been. And he probably was in a lot of
think he has been in.
Yeah, because he just somehow doesn't see it coming. I don't know. It's he shoved him first, and then the dude just gets a clean shot at his face.
Yeah,
and
decks him,
knocks him out. But
it is a weird setup though, because why were they filming that? What were they filming that? They just had a camera, a pretty decent camera, just filming the backstage. That was a little odd.
They filmed the confrontation. I think that they were trying to get into a fight.
Yeah.
We're going to go yell at him, start filming.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Danzig takes the bait and shoves him.
I mean, if someone was gonna, it'd be Danzig.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is hilarious. So since today's record is not really a punk record at all, they come from punk roots, I guess. They're inspired by punk stuff. I did want to look at what their actual contemporaries were in 1994. So if we look at stoner metal from 1994, we have Caius's Welcome to Sky Valley record. There's Acid Bath, when the kite string pops. We got a Corrosion of Conformity record, Deliverance, The Obsessed, The Church Within, and then it pretty much falls off right away as far as other bands. Let's try another term.
There's a Nativity in Black, a tribute to Black Sabbath compilation, which includes Megadeth, White Zombie, Biohazard, Sepultura, Ozzy, Corrosion of Conformity, Bruce Dickinson with Godspeed, Ugly Kid Joe, Faith No More. Let's see. There's like Rob Halford, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, Brian Tilse, and Wino on a track together. Typo Negative.
Okay, this does a better job of, I think, of kind of comparing what's going on with this record. So I looked up Sludge, and that same year we have a Cherubs record, Heroin Man. There's a Godflesh record. We have Grief, Come to Grief. We've got Harvey Milk, My Love is Higher Than Your Assessment of What My Love Could Be. We have Total Destruction by Unsane. We've got a Buzz Oven record, a Killdozer record, A Man is the Bastard Split with Capitalist Casualties. We've got Craw. We've got Groundwork, which they're a metalcore band, but they had some sludgier moments. There's a Soylent Green record. There's a Carp record, Mustache is Wild. Yeah, sludge is probably the more accurate genre.
There's a Fu Manchu record as well. There is a Black Sabbath record, Cross Purposes, which is with Tony Martin on vocals. There's a Pentagram record. There's a Paramecium record. That's more of like a Death Doom.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a different world in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's definitely a lot of Death Doom records that came out that year as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point for this style of music. Like, it's definitely a thing. It's been pretty well established at this point. But I also feel like it's a genre whose heyday is a little bit later, more in like the 2000s. I feel like it gets a lot more attention. At least those records get a lot more attention in general. But yeah, a lot of different stuff for sure, though, for 94. But yeah, let's get into the actual record we're going to talk about today. So Steve assigned us the album Stoner Witch by the Melvins. On the band. It formed in 1983, originally from Montesano, Washington, later relocated to San Francisco, and then again to the San Fernando Valley. This album was released October 18th, 1994 on Atlantic Records, and this is the band's 7th album. The person on this record is Mark Dutram on bass, guitar, and backing vocals, Dale Crover on drums, guitar, and backing vocals, and King Buzzo, aka Buzz Osborne, on guitar, bass, and vocals. And the album was produced by the band, as well as Garth, who previously had produced the self-titled Rage Against the Machines album, as well as Houdini by Melvins. And the same year, in 1994, he produced albums by L7, Surgery, and Testament. So not quite where he would get to, the level that he would get to in a few years, but, you know, some solid names to start off early part of your career. So, all right. So Melvins, where do we start with this, man? So what is your experience with the Melvins? connection, thoughts, feelings, anything prior to this record, listening to it for the show?
Melvins that's one of those bands that is a huge gap in knowledge and listening for me. Like, definitely one of the more important bands that I've listened to no full albums by previously. Because, I don't remember ever having anything by them. I would have become aware of them as a teenager, for sure. I would have heard them talked about as we got into like doom metal and lots more of like the extreme metal stuff. And I remember hearing songs and I knew in becoming aware of them as like a really important doom, stoner, or whatever kind of metal band, sludge, whatever. I feel like they fall into, it kind of depends on the record where they fall in terms of subcategory. Broadly categorized, I would just say that they're like a stoner sludge band, but would have definitely come across them being talked about as a influence on like Nirvana and grunge. Certainly a band that many people have claimed as an influence for a really long time. And I heard stuff from sporadic, I don't know, just like random places in their discography. Like I would have heard stuff that was getting put out in the mid 2000s by them, as well as maybe heard some stuff from their classic records. They were a band that our neighbor who was really into metal and like weird experimental metal bands and industrial and stuff like that, like real early industrial stuff. I never got the sense that he loved them.
Yeah.
I always felt like he had a really pretty passive interest in them. So he didn't play them a lot. So I didn't really have much of a reason to explore them. And what I heard, I don't know, I guess what I heard didn't really compel me to dig deeper. It would have been the right time period as far as like what we were listening to have explored their stuff, but just nothing put me over the edge to pull the trigger and like download any of their important records and listen to them. So they fell into a category of, I know of them, I know they're important. Ostensibly, I respect them, but I don't even really entirely know why, other than just like people cite them as an influence. And they were definitely super early to be doing the stuff that they were doing.
Yeah. So yeah, I have like no Melvins experience really, short of like a handful of songs that I've heard, especially getting into, like you said, the more doom and stoner type stuff. They're a weird band in the sense that like they do a lot of different things, but none of them were ever anything that like completely hooked me, like anything I ever heard. I remember seeing some like early videos they did where they were like some like 80s videos where they were definitely that influence on grunge specific. They always say like, they're an influence on grunge. It's like, I think they're just an influence on Kurt Cobain more than anything, because like he was friends with them and they're from the same part of the country too. They were like an influence on stuff like Green River and that kind of stuff, like the early grunge, I guess, that proto grunge stuff that was going on. They were one of the bands though that definitely cited My War as an influence, and the early stuff I definitely can hear it. I can hear it on some of the stuff on this record too, honestly. But like that's one that I could see being like, oh yeah, they actually did do the My War thing, and so by extension, I guess then the Melvins are carrying on that influence to the next generation. But yeah, my real, to me, like calling them one kind of sound is never really that accurate. Like I wouldn't call them a doom band, even though they certainly have like doom songs and drone songs as well. Like they're credited as like inventing like the drone doom thing, and was their song Boris, right? Inspired the band Boris from Japan. And really when I look at the Melvins discography and I look at the Boris discography, I'm like, oh, you were heavily inspired by the Melvins, not just in like that drone thing, but in that you do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And put out way too many records too. But like, I guess sludge is pretty accurate for a lot of their sound. They're weird. They're really weird band to talk about because they just did a lot of different stuff, and they're still around. But then they did stuff like they did the records with Jello Biafra, like the 2 records with him, and those were like more punky type records, more in line with what Jello was doing musically. Yeah, just a very wide ranging band, influential, important band that I've certainly listened to music that was heavily inspired by them, but not much of their own, like at all.
Yeah. And they have records that I've heard of from all over their discography. You know, like Bullhead, Houdini, the record that we're talking about, the one immediately after it, Stag. You know, I've seen those album covers. I've heard those names a bunch. A Senile Animal in mid-2000s. You know, they have, right, the Jello Biafra records. That's probably the most I've actually heard.
Yeah, I feel like I've probably heard more songs from those records than anything else they ever did. I mean, I remember when Nude with Boots came out, like in stores. I remember seeing that, you know.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, like, what I've probably heard more things that one time Melvins member Joe Preston has done than Melvins records. Like, I've heard, he wasn't in Harvey Milk, you know, originally, but I've heard the records. I've heard some of the stuff he's played on. I've heard other, you know, like the first Harvey Milk record and one of their other 90s records. And I've heard a lot of different records from them. And I've heard Earth, you know, he played with Earth for a while, and he played with High on Fire for a while. And he played with, he did that Project Thrones, which that record came out in, I don't know what the deal with that record is. It's like a compilation. It came out in the 2000s. That band was real. They have like one actual album, but yeah, I don't know. Just skipped Melvins, despite how important they are. Maybe there was something, I don't know what it was. I just didn't hear the right things, maybe.
Yeah, I never heard anything that I was like super compelled to listen to. Like, I probably heard Boris, the song, just to see, you know, just to get an idea of what it was that influenced them as a band. But I liked how, well, also Melvins didn't do that as their only thing, whereas Boris did that for the first couple records. It's just drone. And so I definitely was like listening to drone. God, why were we listening to so much drone? So many wasted hours listening to drone. I think Boris did drone the best, them and like Conate, because I think drone is better with vocals, because then it forces you to actually kind of like write something a little bit. And Boris would do drone with vocals, and Sun does drone with vocals, but they're by bad people.
Yeah.
But like, I honestly don't think Sun is all that interesting. I feel like Earth was better, Boris was better. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Just a weird period where I was like, oh, listen to that. I think it's more of a like, listen to how weird my taste in music is than actually like enjoying. Yeah, I just feel like, yeah, I never heard the right thing to really turn me into a fan. Let's get into a little bit of the backstory of this record and the band. So, consistently, the band has been Buzzo and Dale Crover with a rotating cast of bass players. The band did originally form in 1983, and Dale joined in 1994 and then stayed with the band going forward. They wanted to play slower and heavier than anyone else in their scene in Washington. Mission accomplished. Well, you know what, though? That's where a lot of those drone bands came from, too.
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah.
Which I guess is also an influence of the Melvins. They were doing it before everybody else. Interestingly, Dale Crover did play drums for Nirvana in 1988 for a 10-song promo. And then Buzz introduced Kurt and Chris Novoselic to Dave Grohl. So the Melvins are very influential in the Nirvana story and grunge in general, I guess. So Buzz and Dale then moved to San Francisco, and their original bassist, Matt Lukin, stayed in Washington, and he later goes on to form Mudhoney. So
Right.
very important maneuver there. If they don't move, does Mudhoney form? Or at least, does Matt Lukin join Mudhoney? So the bassist on this record, it is Mark Dutram. He was the replacement for Lori Black, a.k.a. Lorax, is what she was credited as sometimes, who is the daughter of Shirley Temple.
I've probably heard that before. And
Yeah.
that's
So
so funny and weird.
she's in the band, and then she leaves the band, and then Joe Preston comes in for like a year, and then Joe leaves, and then she comes back and joins the band, and that's when Mark replaced her.
Yeah. Isn't it like the story that Joe Preston was too fucked up for the Melvins?
I mean, I could see that.
We're just like, this guy's, I don't know what it was. Like, maybe he's just like doing a bunch of crank. And they're like, this is too much.
Yeah. Though he's in the period of the band where they decided to do solo, like the 3 solo records,
Yeah.
the Kiss records. So he's in the band a year, and he gets his own whole album, which is funny.
He gets his face on one of the records,
Yeah. Therefore, kind of like cementing himself as like one of the more iconic bass players in the band. So interestingly, though, Mark had previously worked with the band and recorded their album Ozma in 1989. He like engineered that record or produced it, either one. And then they're just like, you want to be in the band later? So very interconnected scene. Just all these people just like working with each other a lot. The name of their band comes from a coworker of King Buzzo when he worked at a grocery store. He was a clerk at a grocery store, and there's a manager there named Melvin that everyone hated. And then they were just like, that's a good name for a band. And so named the band the Melvins. And so this record comes out on Atlantic Records. And that is wholly thanks to Nirvana and their connection to Nirvana. So Nevermind comes out, becomes a massive hit. And the Melvins wind up signing with Atlantic because Atlantic president at the time was also the Nirvana's band manager, which is very weird. The president of Atlantic was Nirvana's manager. Odd. But because he was so close with them, he was like, all right, I'm going to sign the Melvins then. So good connections there. They get a deal. So they released the album Houdini in 1993 on Atlantic Records. And the same year as Stoner Witch, the Melvins released an album called Prick on Amphetamine Reptile Records under the name Snivlim. They just wrote Melvins into a mirror and wrote it down and looked at it in a mirror, and that's how they did it, because the letters are backwards too. And that record is like sound collage and experimental like noise type stuff. And part of the reason why they had to go by that name too is because they were already signed to Atlantic, so they couldn't like put out a Melvins record on another label under the name Melvins, so that's why it's Snivlim. And Atlantic was probably like, we don't care about this. They could very easily have been like, no, you can't do that. You can't put it out on another label. But because of what kind of record it is, they were probably like, it's fine. Nobody else will want this. It's like not well liked either. Like it's not a well regarded Melvins album. So they probably were not threatened by that. So that record was originally going to be called Kurt Cobain as well. But then Kurt dies. And they were like, I think people are going to think this is a tribute album to him. And they're like, it's not. And so they were like, they changed it to Prick because he was a prick for dying, which was the joke that they had going into it. So we get to this record, and they record most of it in one take. Like all the songs are done in one take, which.
So I just saw that they fired Joe Preston for lack of work ethic. It was the claim.
Oh, well, the Melvins do have a good work ethic. They
do.
According to like one thing I saw, they've released 27 albums at this point. They had one this year. But
yeah. I think pulling off recording this record in one take, in single takes. I mean, I'm assuming by one take they mean the song. They started it however many times they needed to, but like the finished recording is a single take recording, not they played it once and that's what they used.
Yeah, because it does say that they spent, let's see, I think it says how long they spent in the studio, like 19 days in the studio or something like that. Yeah, 19 days at A&M Studios in Hollywood. So, yeah, I could see them being like, all right, yeah, I see what you mean. These are like one take songs.
They're single take, not, they're not overdubbed. They're not comped, they're fully playing it live together.
Yeah.
In one full take. But
and then they like tracked it and mastered it in a single continuous session. I don't know why they did that, but they did. The album title comes from what Dale Grover and his friends called the Stoner Girls at his high school. They called them Stoner Witches, which is funny. The album sold 50,000 copies initially. They made music videos for the songs Revolve and Queen. And that's where we'll stop for now. But very weird to me that this band is on Atlantic Records on a major label, part of a 3-album deal. Just because, like, I guess it's just good to have connections, being friends with Nirvana, and the Nirvana tour manager is also the Atlantic president, means you get opportunities that you probably would not have gotten from major labels. Is also part of that. There's a good chance that guy liked it too. I don't see, and just maybe it was hoping that name recognition would help with sales and carry them on. But yeah, very interesting. So, what'd you think of this record?
I thought it was good. I wasn't totally sure going into it how I was going to feel about the record. I was thinking like, there's, I guess one of the questions I had was like, is this going to tell me why I've never really listened to a Melvins record front to back? Like, is this going to be like, oh, I see why? And I don't think it really, there are things that I don't like about the record, but overall I enjoyed it. It was not nearly as like challenging and taxing of a listen as I maybe thought it might be. Because I was just like, I feel like Melvins, I guess I just was thinking like Melvins have a reputation of being experimental in a way that I won't enjoy. And I was maybe under the impression that was going to be something that is more consistent throughout their records. But I think it, at least in the case of this record, it only comes up in a few moments where I'm like, all right, I'm not feeling this. But so the general takeaway was like, yeah, it's actually, that's not a bad record. It's not, or it's a good record even, like it's not for me necessarily. It's not something it really is a sound and a genre that I reach for so very rarely now.
That not at all.
Listening to it, I wasn't like, oh yeah, where's this been all my life? Like it wasn't like it was scratching an itch that I didn't know I had. It was just like, yeah, all right, that sounds like what they influenced. And I'm like, okay, so people really did take pretty literally from Melvins. And like, so I guess that's kind of cool to see that confirmed, I guess. And I'm like, oh yeah, had I maybe given this more of a chance when I was 15, I would have probably had like a Melvins phase at least, and I would have I would know their important records. There are songs and some moments that I really enjoyed. I would say that the overall, it was pretty just like not obtrusive in not really drawing me in, and a few moments that I was a little bit annoyed with. But yeah, an interesting listen, I think. And enough different things going on, too.
going into it, I was a little hesitant. Like, I was like, what is this record gonna be? Because I know Melvins are lots of different things at different times, and the album is called Stoner Witch, so I'm like, okay, maybe this will be more of like a stoner record, like a sludge, or not just sludge, but like a doomier record. Interestingly, Black Sabbath is not an influence on the Melvins at all. They said that they were more influenced by My Ward than Black Sabbath stuff, which honestly kind of shows if you listen to this, because it's one of those rare records of like in the genre of doom, I guess, that you're like, I hear no Sabbath in this. And so many doom bands and albums are like very Sabbath influenced. So yeah, that's interesting to hear. So yeah, I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm getting into at all. And then I saw it was on a major, and I was like, okay, this could be like one of those weirdly accessible records too. And listening to it, there's not like one thing that this album does. This album does a lot of different things, which is the band's modus operandi. They constantly just do different styles of things on the records. And I like half of it. Like, I think half of this record is really good, really good. The other half of the record, I think, is not very good, but how you described it is like not obtrusive, except for one. There's one song we'll get to that I'm mad at, and then like halfway through, I'm like, what? But I think the first half of the record, I think, is really good. I think this is a case of a A-side, B-side record. I assume this got a vinyl release, and I bet if you look at the B-side, it is where you think the B-side happens on this record. Let's see. But it is like the mid-90s, so maybe not a vinyl might not have been the thing in 94, but regardless.
There's a cassette from 94.
Okay.
With the A side ending on At the Stake and the B side starting on Magic Pig Detective. That's probably where I would guess the side splits would be. Vinyl might have to be different because At the Stake is really long.
Yeah.
So I could see that getting. There is the LP from 94 as well. Let's see what no, it splits it. It's the A side ends on At the Stake. So
that makes sense because it's like an 8-minute track, and if you put that on the B side, I don't think it would fit on the B side.
Well, and the A side has a lot of short stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of shorter tracks. Skweetis, Sweet Willie Roll Bar.
Yeah,
being under 2 minutes each, and it's mostly like 3 to 4 minute songs, 3 to 5 minute songs.
Yeah, so not exactly where I would draw the line as far as sides, but you probably have to just for time restraints. So yeah. First half I think is really, really good. Second half I don't particularly like all that much, and I could see that being how I feel about the entire Melvins discography. I could see them being like this part's good, this part's not good. Like just because they have so many records and they try so many different things, your success rate on all these different things will vary. And it's not that I think they do any of the stuff on the back half poorly. It's just not what I want to listen to, I think. I think that's purely just I am over this kind of music in general. I do listen to Boris records when they come out, but they don't get a lot of repeat listens, mainly because I'm like, what's this one going to be? It's more of to check that out. And they have the same thing going on where I don't like everything they did. I don't want to hear everything they do in the same of all the styles. So this was one where I was just like, starts good, it doesn't end in a way that I'm like super happy. But like there's only one thing I really just like do not like on the record, and the rest I'm like, fine. This is one of those rare records where I feel like maybe doing track by track might actually kind of work, or at least, somewhat work. So yeah, the album starts off with Skweetis. It's like a minute 12 song. It's not much of a song. It's just kind of a thing,
It's real short. It's very AM-reppy, noise rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very much in line with like Unsane and completely blanking on their name now. Jesus Lizard.
Oh right, yeah. I don't mind this. It's just a little fun, short thing. But we get to Queen, and I think Queen is really good. Like
Queen is good.
Queen is like a really great song. I really like that song a lot. Big riff. Kind of doing like a talk sing sort of thing. Fun little. He does it a few times. His vocal style is very like on the first track I said he has a little bit of Rob Zombie in his voice there, but definitely a Gene Simmons kind of thing going on too vocally.
God of Thunder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear a little bit of Rollins too.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
From that My War.
Yeah. Queen's great. I get why it was chosen as a single. Though really, how is anything on this record a single? But
For Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe 120 minutes.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, I could see it being on there. But then we have Sweet Willie Roll Bar. I thought that was another really fun one. Just lots of cool little like riffs and grooves.
I like that harmonic, the riff.
Yeah, yeah. They do a kind of a classic rock groove, and on a couple tracks here, and I'm just like, yeah, that's right. You are one of those bands who's like influenced by 70s rock too.
Yeah. I really like Sweet Willie Roll Bar is one of my favorite songs on the record because it's probably one of the fastest songs too. I like the fast stuff they do on here, like a lot. That's definitely my favorite stuff because they're good. Like they're good riffs, and like the speed really helps the riff to like stick the landing.
Yeah, I agree. Like the faster stuff is the stuff I definitely prefer out of everything on the record. And the riffs are cool. They have good riffs, like lots of really fun riffs. We have Revolve. This is our second single on the record. I really like Revolve too. It's another really fun one. This one really leans into that Gene Simmons God of Thunder vocal style. And Kiss is clearly an influence on this band. They did the solo records and they all did like the Melvins name and the Kiss solo record font. And like they have the glow around their heads too. Like they're very obviously influenced by Kiss. And I remember being in a record store in Asheville, Static Age Records in Asheville. And one of the guys was talking to me about like Harvey Milk. And like, he was like, well, it depends. There's two different types of Harvey Milk. There's the drone doom kind of stuff. And then there's like the Kiss God of Thunder style Harvey Milk. And I was like, is Harvey Milk just a Melvins ripoff? Because I feel like they do the same thing. Like there's a very much a classic rock Kiss influence on the Melvins sound too. And that's the stuff I like the best. Like I would love more of that from them. I wonder if they have any albums where they kind of lean into that sound for a whole record. We have Goose Freight Train. This is slow, like kind of like warbly acoustic guitar thing going on. And then it gets like, it fills in with the rest of the band and then gets a little more like bluesy, kind of a bluesy rock song to that one. I thought it was okay. It's not my favorite. It's also kind of a sign of like the rest of the record to come.
Yeah, I think they're using like brushes on the drums.
They're doing that like stick thing.
Yeah, it feels that, and some of a lot more of the stuff on the B side feels more like they're drawing on like Coil and like Einstürzende, that more of the experimental industrial stuff that they're influenced by.
Yeah,
that I don't like very much.
We have Road Bull. I think it's another. I like Road Bull. It's got a nice bluesy riff to it too. Really good groove, huge drums. It's like a whistling going on in it too, with like a marching drum beat in there too. It's just like a weird like what's the military what's the song you whistle it going into war song? Anyway,
I don't know. Dixie.
Montezuma's not
Montezuma's Revenge.
No, you know what I'm talking about though, right? From the halls of da 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 da.
Oh,
from the halls of Montezuma to the blah 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 blah.
I don't think it's the halls of Montezuma. I don't think it's Montezuma at all.
The glory, mine eyes have seen the glory of the whatever something. That song.
Battle Hymn of the Republic.
There it is.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I was like, what fucking Ashokan Farewell?
What is the lyric in there that I'm thinking of that I keep thinking of Montezuma? I don't know. It's not even.
No idea. There's nothing there.
No. This is a broken brain moment here. And so this is where I draw the line, though. This is where I'm like, I like everything from Road Bull to the top, like to the top of the record. I like everything there. Everything after this, there's only one thing I like. At the Stake, do not like. it picks up in the back half, but it's such a long song that it just isn't worth it for me. Magic Pig Detective, I hate the first half of the song. This is the song where I'm just like, I hate this so much. It's just noise, experimental noise stuff.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it so much. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be this long. And then it just turns into like a big riff at the end, and kind of like the more, traditional, well, more what the first half of the record is giving you. It just decides like halfway through, we're going to do that now. No, not a fan.
Yeah, it's annoying. I wish that they had made the drone part of it a separate track, because
Yeah.
I feel like the actual like song part of it is good, but it's like I never want to hear it on its own
Yeah.
now, because the first 3.5 minutes are like
Awful.
just like oscillating noise.
Yeah.
And it hurts, especially to like, I think it's a moment that would be more tolerable in the record for me if it didn't follow At the Stake, which is 8 minutes long, just kind of slow, meandering, that side of sludge and stoner metal that I have the least interest in now.
I thought Shovel is just kind of boring. It's like it starts kind of ambient. It's just slow. I don't know. Some people online really seem to like Shovel, but I do not like this one either. I just think it's just kind of boring.
It's instrumental. It's like 6.5 minutes long. It's kind of a post-industrial, sort of ambient-ish. Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah. Junebug, I do like Junebug. It kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like big and heavy and fuzzy and not very long. It's very short. Very much in line with like the front of the record, the A side of the record. Very much in that style.
It has that cool driving bass line.
Yeah.
And then like when the song really kicks in, and yeah.
Yeah, I like Junebug a lot. I think that's a really fun one. And then it closes on Lividity, which is very long. I'm not mad at this one. It is the album closer. 9 minutes long.
It's basically just a drone, though.
Yeah, it's a drone.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at it, but I think it does. I guess At the Stake is probably the better of like these type of songs. But I guess I do probably like Lividity more than Shovel and Magic Pig Detective. So it's fine. Like don't get into that one, but not too mad about it.
Yeah. There's stuff on here that definitely reminds me of like Revolve and Road Bull, especially. There's some really kick-ass riffs on them, and they have like little guitar lead part or guitar parts that I'm like, oh, that's kind of like where Mastodon got that. Like Revolve even almost sounds like I was thinking like Revolve sounds like especially with the vocals on that song. I was like, this feels like what Metallica was doing at the time. Like, the stuff that people hate, the sellout Metallica stuff, the Black Album Load kind of stuff. But I was like, yeah, it's kind of that kind of riff, yeah, like I said, I like the fast stuff on here a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely the standout material for me. I think I probably dislike the B-side less than you do. Or yeah, I probably like let me say that in a not double negative way. I probably like the B-side more than you do. That would be the right way to say it. That makes sense. I think a lot of the stuff that like Shovel and Lividity, as much as they don't do anything for me, I found them not really obtrusive. It wasn't hard to like kind of zone out and just vibe to them. But they didn't they didn't really grab me in any way. I don't think I realized how long either of those songs were. Like Shovel, like I don't think I clocked that it was a 6.5 minute song. Or non-song, just drone as much as it is anything. And even Lividity, like I think towards the very end of Lividity, probably started to realize I'm like, this has been going for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And then like realize it was the last song. I found them easy to just kind of zone out on. And I guess it's not like a ringing endorsement. I think that's a kind of music that I don't think either of us reaches for.
No.
I think it's a sensibility in music that we are not inclined towards that is more popular than you would think.
I saw multiple people call it that, say that the Melvins troll the listeners. Like that's like a thing that they do, and that's why the B-side is the way that it is. Because my complaint is like, why is this album structured this way to put like all of that stuff on the back half of the album, but like start so strong? And I don't know if this is people just reading too much into it and assuming that they did it this way just to be like, oh, and it's this really fun record, and then all of a sudden it stops being fun. It's like I don't know if that's their intent, or if they were just like, let's put all this stuff together. I don't know. It makes it easy to stop listening to the record after you get to a point where you're just like, and I don't need those 3 drone tracks at the end of the album.
I'd be curious to know if many other Melvins records follow this structure. I could very easily see that being them just drawing from My War. I can definitely make that comparison to My War of like stronger A-side than B-side. B-side's where it gets all experimental and weird and stonery and drawn out and meandering. Like I can see them being heavily influenced by My War and kind of having that as a touchstone for a lot of their like record pacing, to where they're into that idea of like fast hooking stuff at the front and then the B-side being the weird stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't listened to their other records. I don't know if they follow that similar structure.
Is this normal, for the Melvins to do this record this way? And they got imprinted by My War and they just never broke that format going forward. I don't know. It's possible. I didn't do my album sandwich that I normally do for this one just because we're recording earlier in the week than because I would have normally done it today, like, and I just didn't have time to listen to this album 3 times and get an album sandwich in there too. I did want to do the 2 Atlantic records. Like I wasn't gonna do Prick. Like, there's no way I was going to enjoy that. I wanted to do the 3 Atlantics though, Houdini and Stag on the other side of the record. So Houdini's the more popular record of these.
Yeah, I mean, it has that classic album cover. The what's that artist? What's his name? Frank Kozik.
Frank Kozik, yeah. I've seen a bunch of his stuff in person too. Yeah,
he just died last year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, classic artist. Tons of album covers and posters and some really cool stuff. All in that, very much in that style, that real cartoony, big saturated colors. And he did the Americana album cover. That's right. The Offspring.
Oh yeah, he did.
Americana cover.
Yeah. Just looking at the track listings, they don't structure any of their other albums like this one. Like Houdini and Stag are not structured like Stoner Witch as far as like track lengths. There's a lot more songs on Stag, and there's like the longest song is only like 6.5. So this is designed to be that specific. I mean, it's called Stoner Witch, so my guess is they were specifically going for that kind of thing on this, especially on the back half of the album. Yeah, Bullhead is the other like really famous record, and that's the one with Boris on it. Boris starts that record. Wild, and it's the only long song like that. So yeah, this didn't answer anything about the Melvins for me as far as like what they sound like on other records.
Yeah, I enjoyed enough of it that I'd be curious to hear some of the other classic records for sure.
Yeah.
Like I skipped over those records when they came up on my calendar. So we'll see. Stag came out in 96. So that's on my calendar actually for this month, July of 96. So I may throw that on later this month and see how I feel about that record. I'm interested enough to at least hear the classic records in a way that I never was before, despite this being, like I said, music that I'm not reaching for ever anymore. So I would say there's more to it than I like than I dislike, ultimately.
Yeah, I would say that it is a good record. It's just like the back half has things just the kind of stuff I don't want to listen to in general anymore. And that's not a value judgment. That's just a me not wanting to hear that kind of thing. Like, I don't think they do it badly. I think they do those things well enough. I just don't reach for that kind of thing. I preferred, everything leading up to that back half way more. Like I got a lot of enjoyment out of it and would like to hear more. Like if there's whole records that sound like that, I'm in. Tell me, Melvins fans, point me in the direction of records that sound like all the Fast songs, because if those exist, I'm super into it and want to hear it. Maybe Stag is that. There's not that many long songs on Stag, and maybe it's worth checking out. That one's got like psychedelic rock listed as an influence on there, or a style on there. So maybe that's more in the Boris like vein, because Boris does that. Boris will have records where it's just like pure, straightforward, psychedelic rock, stoner rock, and not even do drone or ambient or anything like on that. So maybe Melvins do that too, and I just haven't found the ones. Lysol has a drone tag on it, so my guess is Lysol is not one for me. But even it's shorter, it's like 31 minutes, so who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I need like a guide through the Melvins discography to kind of like point me in directions to go with. It's like, well, if you like this, you might like that, So 5th highest rated album on Rate Your Music. It's got a 3.60. Very critically regarded record. It's talked about a lot as like just a really good album. Featured prominently in lots of like music press, heavy music press. I did see, I found this review on Rate Your Music that I thought was very funny. It's a 1-star review, and it is titled Tiring, Sloppy, Disgusting, and goes, what in the blue hell were they thinking? Probably the oddest album I've ever listened to, and solidifies this band as one that should be left and forgotten in decades past. The complete juxtaposition in tone from the recording to the album art is laughable. Vocals are weak and unlistenable, and their riffs are completely forgettable. Avoid this like the Noid, or whatever Gen Xers say. And I was just like, I was really curious what else they've rated. They've not written any reviews for anything else. This is the only review they've written. They really
hated it.
They gave it half star. They've only rated 2 other things. Same day as this Melvins review, they gave I Hate God, Take As Needed for Pain a half star as well. Why are you listening to Sludge then? You clearly do not like this. The other review, 5 stars, The Smashing Pumpkins Mayonnaise 2023.
Yeah.
The 30th anniversary, like 7-inch single of Mayonnaise, they gave 5 stars. That is all they have rated.
Yeah. That's a weird Rate Your Music user. The ratings trend on this record is going down on Rate Your Music. I guess people coming to this in recent years are disappointed in it. I see a lot of Rate Your Music reviews that are like, bad, this is so bad. I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's like, someone even pointed out the Black Album in a few moments, and I'm like, you spell the word "the" with 2 E's. Shut up. Melvins sounding like Black Album Metallica is much more appealing to me than Melvins doing Drone. But yeah, this one seems to be on a downward slope of appraisal.
Are you just looking at like those star ratings down there on the bottom?
There's the rating. There's the rating trend chart.
Where's that?
It's under the rating distribution chart next to the star ratings that are listed at the bottom. You might only be able to see it on the browser.
Let's see. Hold on. So it's like right where you give the star rating?
No. It should be. I'm not sure where it is on a phone. I'm looking at the web browser on a computer. Sometimes I can't find it on my phone, but sometimes I can.
Huh. Weird.
I don't know. The page doesn't load right. I don't know. I think there's enough that I really like about the record and enough that I don't mind about the record to give it a solid 3.25 kind of rating. There is enough about it that I don't like or am just like not engaged, that it's not something I want to reach for a re-listen. But it's very easy to say that I'm not mad about having listened to it. Like I am glad that someone made me listen to a Melvins record, because I don't think that I would on my own.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely would not just like pick a Melvins record and listen to it. Like I can't think of that's like me just picking a Sonic Youth record and listening to it. Though I have done that before, and I've never actually done it with the Melvins. But like, I guess I would maybe that was more of trying to figure out what it is that people like about Sonic Youth versus I know what people like about Melvins. I just don't necessarily want to hear that at the moment. So kind of being forced to listen to a record by them, it gives me a reason to listen to it. And now I'm more curious than ever about the rest of the discography. Like I said, if there's more of the fast stuff, let me know, because I really do want to hear that. If it's just a lot more doom and drone and stuff like that, like I've listened to enough of that kind of stuff throughout my life that I'm good, you know.
Yeah. The drone stuff that we lost interest in it, and like it's thinking about it as like that, like I said, that sensibility of music. I think it's I just want something I can ignore sensibility of music that I don't have at all anymore. Like I don't want to listen, but that's a big category of music. Like that is chill beats to study to. I'm like, I don't need focused music.
Yeah, it's true. Like I don't. It is true. There probably are a lot more like this is really good background music as a thing, and I'm like, I just put on music as background music. Like I don't have like a specific style I go for background music. Maybe I'm like dinner music might be something that I pull out some stylistic stuff, but even then, I don't know. I don't need to
listen to music while I'm eating.
I don't listen to music while I'm eating either. I was thinking that too. I was like, what scenario would I be doing it? Like a party setting music? I don't know what I would put on. I haven't been to a party forever.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of party. Is this a drinking and people doing drugs party?
Yeah.
Then it's gonna need to be energetic. Is this I had some friends over for dinner
yeah.
kind of music? Then it's like, yeah, like Steely Dan. I don't know. It's just it's like agreeable soft rock.
Yeah. I honestly, hanging out with any of my friends, there's very little music ever involved. You know? It's funny, yeah. But I guess like, yeah, if people need stuff to focus on, like a lot of people can't listen to music with lyrics and like work or do stuff like that. And
I generally can't, but I don't like putting on background music when I need to focus where someone's singing, where lyrics are going to be. If I'm in a situation where lyrics are going to be distracting to me, then I just would rather just have silence.
Yeah. Like I can't read. That'd be funny if I just stopped there. I can't read. I can't read.
That's debatable, yeah.
And listen to music with lyrics. Despite me not being a lyrics person and never paying attention to lyrics, I think it's because there's like just words being thrown at me while I'm trying to read words. I'm like,
it's like someone counting while you're counting, saying numbers while you're counting. Yeah.
So I can't listen to music with I don't typically. Anytime I ever have, I do tend to reach for like instrumental type stuff, and then it's still like usually it's like movie scores or something like that if I ever do that. But not really. I don't even really do that. Not since college. Like I did some. When I went back to school, I did some work with like scores and stuff like that playing in the background. Because like I wanted to hear something because I knew I was going to be there for a long time working on something, geology homework or whatever.
Yeah.
But nothing with lyrics because I was just like, now I don't know if this is what kind of sediment this is, you know?
Yeah. Like when I've had jobs where I could listen to music while I was working, then I just listened to whatever I wanted to listen to.
Yeah.
Because it was always the kind of work where I didn't need to focus on what I was doing. I could do it. I could listen to podcasts while I was doing that stuff, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I just don't want, I listen to plenty of instrumental music that people would think of as background music. Like I listen to plenty of jazz, like fully engaged. I'm like, I want to actively pay attention to this. Like, I don't know. I don't find the need to have a background sound for any situations that just
like on
music that I happen to want to listen to wouldn't be suitable for.
Like cleaning is about the only thing that I pick something that I don't want to think about too closely. Like that's when I tend to go for like metalcore, like dumb stuff. Like when I'm cleaning, I'm like, let's listen to some Haste the Day right now, you know, like that kind of thing. But even then, I'm still kind of paying attention to it. That's more of I need energy. I need like driving, you know. Yeah. So yeah, it is like a thing I don't reach for very often because you're right that when I listen to music, I want to be more engaged, and like I find like so much like drone and doom, like especially the slower stuff, hard to maintain that engagement. And so that's why I get bored with it and then like want to go to something else. So, but this, like, yeah, I think it's a great first half and a fine second half of stuff I don't want to listen to in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, good pick, Steve. Very interested to know more about the Melvins discography. Funnily enough, when he picked it, I think it's funny. Him and Dave both signed up for the Patreon $10 tier the same day, and it was after the Black Flag My War episode. And I think that was why he picked the Melvins, because they were such an influence on that album was such an influence on their sound. And he originally was like, I want my favorite record is their like singles collection. It was like their AmRep singles collection. He's like, but that's not streaming anywhere. So then he picked this record for us to listen to. But so yeah, this is cool. I want to know more about Melvins. I want to check out some more stuff. So yeah, open to recommendations, of course. And if you want to send us a recommendation, hit us up on any form of social media at punklautopod, punklautopod@gmail.com, our voicemail line, 202-688-PUNK. And yeah, give us a rating. We got, I like this, somebody gave us a star rating on Apple Podcasts and actually got us off of a 3.9 average to a 4.0 average. So whoever that was, thank you, because I got so annoyed looking at that 3.9 for so long. But from people who
didn't see the vision,
didn't get it. But yes, thank you all so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.